fights. I'm like, just calm down, people. It's little
Right.
kids.
It's supposed to be.
Like,
It doesn't change when they get to high school. I've seen parents run out on the court and get mad.
It's too much.
Yeah, well, my son's playing in a competitive soccer league that's almost a full year round. And the very first game, there was a parent on the sideline, and I couldn't hear what they said, but the ref walked all the way across the field and was like, you can cheer for the game, but if you say another thing about me, you're out of here for the rest of the season. And I was like, wow. And then I'm like looking at everybody going, what did he say? What did he say? Anyway, we are live on Facebook. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us. This is Dyslexia Coffee Talk. I'm your host, Ashley. We have with us today Tony Cina. See, yep. I told you I was going to do it wrong.
It's all good.
And Dr. Shawn Robinson, Dr. Dyslexia Dude. I'm like backwards today with everything I'm going to come out of my mouth today.
It's all good. It's all good.
Thank you both for joining us. How are you today?
Good. Yourself?
Doing good. It's Saturday afternoon.
It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon in Wisconsin. It's beautiful and sunny, and leaves are coming down. Very pretty.
I went outside to try to play with my dogs, and they decided to jump in the pool, so I came back inside. So it seemed pretty. But let's talk about what you gentlemen are doing. Tell me first what college you're both working at.
Madison College, is that right? Or is it Madison Area Technical College? What's the right terminology?
It's both. Use? It's both. Madison College is the new brand, but we still are technically Madison Area Technical College.
Very nice. And together, you're very much focused on adult literacy and numeracy, correct?
Yes. We both work in the adult basic education. It's called the School of Academic Advancement, but what we do is developmental and remedial education for adults, including high school completion options for adults.
And Shawn, I know this is, of course, a passion for you because, I mean, you just gave an amazing TED Talk a couple of weeks ago where you talked about Dr. Nash and how he helped you and helped move you into college, but that was really when you started to learn how to read, is because he was determined to assist you and help you. He knew you were intelligent, he knew you were bright, he knew you were capable, but finally somebody like reached out his hand to you and said, here, let me help you.
Yes. Yeah, it was big, big pivot, I guess, in my life at that time. And so, I've had a lot of journeys up to this point, and a lot of institutions that gave me a lot of resistance when I tried to speak to him about the knowledge that I had about the science of reading or certain groups. And everyone just kept like putting their hands in my face, pretty much saying like, I didn't know what I was talking about, or, I wasn't part of a certain class, and certain groups and cult, and so groups. And so when I landed at Madison College, it was truly a gift from God. It was truly everything I've worked for in my life to this point all came together and the stars aligned. Get it? Stars, space, all aligned. Yeah, see. So all the stars aligned for me. Madison College was the first institution of higher education that provided me a space to do what I know works. Like no questions asked. Gave me just allow me to disrupt the pipeline that exists for not just adolescents, but as they transition to higher education, to help them become proficient in reading, and help them with the job market, labor market, life, just everything. And so it's been a pleasure and an honor to be able to serve in that capacity to teach, and the course that I designed, really took off this summer with Tony's help, but also with the professional development staff. What I did was I took Luis Motz's book and some other books that I'm really passionate about. And I said to myself, all this information in here, this knowledge that's in here, is usually for teacher education programs and early childhood education, right? But what about the adolescent and adult learners? Why can't they have access to information about digraphs and trigraphs and blends and syllable types, and sound structure of our language and linguistics? Like, why can't they have the same access? And so what I did was I just flipped the script and developed a 16-week course, 64-hour course on word analysis that's tailored towards not just adolescents, but adult learners. So basically they're getting a professional development that teachers should be getting, but I just made it more accessible for adult learners. So I was like, you know what? It's a opportunity to change some lives. Let's get them, access to this information, and let's keep it moving. And so that's what we did. And like I said, the foundation of the work was not just based on Dr. Nash's work, because he did a lot of work, and I took his work and Dr. Motz's work, and then I took the work of Peter Westward, and I put it all together and developed a course that really focuses on the skills that these students need to be successful and proficient. Like, we spend 50 minutes sometimes analyzing a word. We'll talk about where the stress patterns are at. We'll talk about what type of syllables are. We'll talk about vowel teams, final E syllable, everything. We'll just have conversations about words, and the light clicks. They're like, wait, this stuff is so cool. Like, how come I didn't learn this when I was younger? And just, again, it's just giving them an opportunity and access. I think that's the biggest thing, is opportunity and access. Most people when they think of me as just Dr. Dyslexia dude or Black males with dyslexia, because no one really gave me opportunity to showcase the gifts that I had. They always argue me. It wasn't a randomized controlled study, or it wasn't a quantitative researcher. Like, I don't have time for all that. Like, I let my work speak for itself, and the data that we collect shows progress. It shows success. It's positive. And so I'm gonna keep doing what I do humbly, and keep changing lives till I die. And so I'm just very, very blessed to be able to serve in this role. I don't know everything, but I know some things. I know how to teach the science of reading. I know how to teach students how to read. I tell students, there's only 3 things that I guarantee that will happen to you after you leave this course. 3 things, that's it. I don't guarantee much, but these I guarantee, because it happens. 1, when you crack the code, you become better at understanding how to decode and encode, you're gonna become more confident. I mean, it's easy, right? And then from the confidence, you're gonna become more independent. It's just simple. And then from independence, you're gonna be empowered. So it's 3 things I guarantee students in the end of the class: confidence, independent, and you're empowered. And that's just from what Dr. Nash taught me, really. It's just cracking the code based on what we know works, multi-sensory instruction, or in Gillingham, just having conversations about words. And I mean, I don't know if that helps. Tony?
Yeah, just as you were talking, I was just thinking, my background is in mostly teaching developmental mathematics. And when Shawn first came to the college, I sent an email to my dean and said, I want to work with this guy because I have an interest in dyslexia. I have 2 kids who don't have an official diagnosis of dyslexia, but might have dyslexia. And so there's some stuff going on. But I'm a homeschool dad. I've homeschooled my kids through middle school. So I've taught my kids to read, and I've seen the trajectory that some kids, wow, like, especially my older kids, it seemed to come to them so naturally. It was so easy to teach them to read. And then later down the line, some of my younger kids, it was really hard. And I began to think, I don't think I'm doing anything differently. And then I began to think about my students and their experiences, and doing some more research about dyslexia and looking at the science of reading and all of that. So Shawn came at a time where I had really piqued a personal interest, but also a professional interest in dyslexia. I used to be a middle school teacher, then I moved to teaching at the technical college. And I just know from my experience teaching middle school, so much of what Shawn talks about is, when you're a 6th grade teacher, you have kids who come to your classroom who are no longer given instruction in reading. They're bright, they're gifted, they're motivated, yet they're stuck. And as a teacher who was trained to teach in the K-12 system, my education was woefully absent of the science of reading. I was educated in the early 90s. And at that point, whole language was the most prevalent model. Phonics was a sort of small sideline, was maybe an hour discussion. And so I wasn't trained to think in those terms. And as a young teacher, really struggled with how do I help these students? And I can identify that they don't have those basic phonetic skills to be able to read. And there really honestly was not a lot of help in the school district where I was working to do that. And it was sort of assumed that by the time you are at 4th grade, you have learned to read enough. Nobody's going to give you explicit reading instruction. And now you're going to be given lots of text-based assignments and you'll be fine. You'll get better. And bringing that into the technical college system, I work a lot with high school completion students. So my primary work is with students who have not completed high school. Now that sometimes is just life situations, right? That people don't finish high school, but a lot of it has to do with learning disabilities, undiagnosed learning disabilities that make, by the time kids get to high school, their frustration level is high. They're not able to access what's being taught because of their reading disabilities, their reading difficulties. But it's also the same with mathematics. And so Shawn really taught me in the first year of working together. He said, I said, I really want to make this math course more accessible. And he said, you're probably already doing a lot of the right things. Look at what you're already doing and doing well. So what I began to see as I worked with Shawn is that the systematic explicit instruction is what I was already doing well in my math class. And that the more we work together, I see that really the student's path through reading instruction and math instruction is very, very similar. And as I do more research, the parts of the brain that are being used to learn mathematics and to learn to read are the same parts of the brain. And I attend on Tuesdays, and this is open to the public. There's a website called Math for All, and it's run by Dr. Mahesh Sharma, and he's a college math professor, but he has become involved in teacher education. He also works with kids in the K-12 system and teachers in the K-12 system. But he says that the turning point in his career is when he started to learn about how people read and began to see the direct connection with how people learn mathematics. So a lot of the same work that Shawn is doing in reading and spelling, I'm doing in mathematics, and I'm no expert at all. Shawn is, a well-known expert in dyslexia and reading, and I'm just a practitioner teaching developmental mathematics. But I'm beginning to see these very strong patterns and connections between dyslexia and dyscalculia. So, Shawn and I have been working together. We share some students in common, doing some professional development to get better at that. And as Shawn alluded to, the K-12 system has a lot more going on in terms of dyslexia than it does at the post-secondary level. So this is very exciting to work with Shawn, because we're thinking about, well, what happens to people who get through the system without getting what they need, but still want to go to college? There really isn't a system set up for those folks, really. And right now, I kind of see dyscalculia as sort of the lesser known brother of dyslexia. Right now, dyslexia is getting a lot more press, a lot more attention, and mathematics is a little bit in the background. So just working to kind of at our college to have those conversations about both is sort of where we're at right now.
Do you find, Shawn, I would imagine, we do hear a lot about, kids are going through the K through 12 system, right? And they, a lot of them do get into college, and, upon getting into college, many of them do get moved into the remedial courses. And there's a lot of data that shows that the kids that go into the remedial courses actually never finish college. Very small percentage of them do. Do you find that with what you're doing, you have the ability, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Do you feel like you could make a change in what that statistic is and have more of those students actually have success? I mean, Shawn, and you're a testament to this too, actually complete not just an undergraduate, but move as far through the educational system as they want to.
You muted.
Yeah, I muted myself. Thank you. I was having technical problems from space, it just wouldn't allow me to speak.
Low oxygen.
All right. I think, I think for the remedial part, as actually Tony and I just had a conversation about this before we got on, so many times at the 2-year college, it could be also an issue with the 4-year institution too, is not just retention, right, issue, but graduation rates too, particularly for students either with a diagnosed learning disability or without, who are faced with this, adversity. They're taking remedial class before they even get to electives. They kind of already out the game before they got into the game. And then they get frustrated and then life takes them other places. And that's the last time we might see them, right? Or they might come back a semester or 2 later. And again, it might take another 2-3 semesters, and they've been in school, 3 years, they still can't get over the hump. And then they say, you know what, I'm done. I'm gonna do something different. Tony, would that be accurate to say too in your experience too?
Absolutely. And I was going to just say, because you brought that topic up, which is an important topic that we talk a lot about at our college, and it's a big conversation in community colleges, because all of that research indicates that the shorter the path is before people start taking credit courses, the better, because the longer we remediate, the less likely we are to retain those students. I heard from, and I keep referencing Dr. Sharma, but he said something about a month ago in a webinar, and he talked about what he does, that our goal should be to remediate and accelerate. So he said, we really have to do both at the same time. And I think it's especially true for adults, right? In mathematics, I might be teaching you how to use exponents, 5 times 5 times 5 is 5 to the 3rd power. But I need to accelerate and start talking to you about algebra, that a times a times a is a to the 3rd power. So we don't stay in remediation. We're looking ahead. What's next? What do we need to do? And so after I heard that from Dr. Sharma, I called Shawn and I said, Shawn, I have the phrase that really describes what you do in word analysis, is remediate and accelerate. So when students are in his class, they are being remediated, yet it doesn't feel like remediation, because when he's talking about the history of the language and working through all of these, complex ideas of what the language looks like, students feel inspired, because it's new and it's interesting and it's tough and it's intellectual. The other person that kind of inspired me to think, and how I thought about Shawn's work and trying to think about what I work is Gloria Latson-Billings, who is she's a professor here in Madison at UW-Madison. And I listened to a podcast a couple months ago that she was speaking, and she said, when people say to me, how do I help students of color in my classroom to succeed? And she said, people are looking for the secret, like the secret sauce that will make everything work. And her advice was this: take those students, no matter where they come from, and treat them like they're in an AP course or an honors course. And if you treat everybody like this is an honors course and teach them that way, that's one of the most powerful things that you as a teacher can do. And I think that relates directly to your question, which is, if I'm coming to the college and I know I have poor skills, yet I believe I have the ability to grow and to achieve some sort of credential, if you only treat me like a remedial student, then you will deflate me. But if you respect all those parts of me and my dream, then I will continue to work hard toward my goal. I know I need remediation. You're not telling me that it's something I don't know about myself already. But if we respect where people are, but get them pointed in the right direction. So I think that Shawn has done a really good job in his course of creating that AP experience, creating that accelerate and remediate experience.
One thing, every time I talk with Tony, it's like therapy for me. It's therapeutic, it's like counseling, but I don't have to pay him anything or anything. One of the things for me, I told Tony before it came on, and this is probably hard for me to say, but I'm gonna say it anyways, is I sometimes have a hard time talking about the knowledge that I have or I share, because look at me, I look different. And every time I try to speak about not just my experience of lived experiences, but my experience of the knowledge that I've gained over the course of my life and how to tackle words and analyze words. I've been doing this since I was 18 years old. It's not like I just started yesterday. Like I've lived this, and so it's hard sometimes for me to open up about this dyslexia stuff because I get so much pushback from a lot of people in the dyslexia space who don't look like me, right? And so that's why sometimes I just stay in my lane and I don't really talk about this stuff as much. And I'm trying to do more of that, but we're changing lives at Madison College. I don't need permission. I don't need anybody's approval. I don't need to be endorsed by anybody. What we're doing is transformational. In fact, we're the first, I think, 2-year college in the state of Wisconsin that has a program specifically for adult learners, again, who either have dyslexia or who may think they have some sort of learning disability, right?
Mhm.
Now we have high schools. Now we have superintendents of different districts knocking on our door, asking us, hey, we want our students to take this class. We just had a meeting with the Department of Corrections. They want the class too. They want their teachers trained in it too. So I'm not, I don't know everything. I'm very humble. A lot of things I don't know. I have to consult with people. I have to conversation with Tony, other colleagues, right? But what I do know works, and what I teach, it works. And I'm saying it humbly, not confident. I'm not arrogant about it, but it's hard for me to open up about this stuff because for so many years I would get pushback from researchers. I had a white researcher once emailed me and told me that he see me as an equal. Okay, I mean, why you eat? Like, do I care? Am I supposed to care? So
Right. What purpose does it serve?
yeah, and and so that's why I try to really stay off of social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook about dyslexia, because I'm always kind of scared or hesitant to put myself out there because I'm not really trying to get into any debate with anybody. I'm not really trying to get into any argument with anybody, because we're all in it for the same reasons, I hope, right? We want to make sure that we change the trajectory, not just of teachers being trained, right, and identification, but we want to change lives. We want to give kids hope. We want to give adult learners who have been failed by the system access. And we're giving them access to language. And so I'll give you a sneak preview, but so can you see my screen?
Yes.
So I'm not gonna go through all of it because I don't want to give all away, the nuggets. But basically, I took Louis Moses' book and I read every chapter in detail. And I was like, you know what? As a dyslexic person myself, and what things I wish I would have had as an 18-year-old come out of high school, that's how I framed it. And so I put together PowerPoints of every chapter and videos, and we do blogs, and literally the students eat it up. Like I'm talking about, they eat it up. Like they were like, wait, like they have the the aha moment, right? It just clicks. And so basically, we really just have conversations about her book, each chapter, and people say, well, it's a very complex chapter. Those students wouldn't be able to understand that. That's all lies. If you frame it to a way where students can understand it, they'll catch on. Like, I'm not trying to speak over them or give them information that makes them feel like they're less than or dumb. I'm like, look, you can learn this stuff. Like, if I pull up this PowerPoint here, we're going to talk about the basics of why we study language. And, of course, I quote Louisa Mosca, this is her chapter, right? She wrote this, but I just took things out of it that I felt were relevant, right? To the students, we talk about, key terms. I mean, we go into auditory discrimination. Like we have in-depth conversations about language. Like they're getting a pretty much a professional development that teachers should be getting, but they're not in the teacher training program. So basically, I just flipped the script. I'm like, look, you know, I'm gonna disrupt this pipeline right now, of the remedial pipeline. And so when they get out after this class, again, they'll have three things: confidence, independent, and empowerment, because they'll be able to crack the code. That's all I'm doing. I'm just to sit every class. We have conversations, right? We go in depth, you know, talk about mapping. We do word knowledge. We do word walls. We do building words. You know, that's all we're doing. And then we also do some multi sensory activities. You know, I pull up my dot cam. I say, what's the first sound you hear? What's the second sound you hear? What's the third sound you hear? What's the fourth sound? Okay, after we got through that, let's talk about the syllables, right? Is it open, closed, R control, final E? You know, like, hey, where's the stress? Is it the first syllable, second syllable? Like we go into conversations like really in depth, and they just gravitate to it. They become motivated. They become inspired. Like they don't see themselves as being, you know, in a remedial class. Like they see themselves, as Tony says, being in the AP, like advanced college course. Think of it, word analysis. What does analysis mean, right? Analyze, like, it's not like, you know, we're gonna take, you know, it's called reading 99, right? Because that's like a remedial course. The students are like, oh God, no. So look, we are going to flip the script at Madison College. Don't need anybody's permission. Don't need anybody's approval, right? What we're doing is not just changing people's lives, but we're changing the script at how two-year colleges could be a vessel for a lot of students, not just adult learners, but students in the high schools that want to transition into a college that has a program specifically designed for their learning needs.
Right.
All right, I'll stop now. Sorry, got me hyped.
No, I'm, you know, when I've always absolutely loved your passion, and you're right. And, you know, it's not just our dyslexic children either. I mean, you know, if you look at the NAEP scores, you know, what is it, like 64% of eighth graders are not reading on grade level? Well, if they're not reading on grade level, there's a high chance they're not doing math on grade level either. You know, it's not just our dyslexic children who are being left behind. It's a substantial number of our children who are being left behind. And the ones who are struggling the most into that are, you know, our Black and our brown children and our Native American children as well. You know, we're leaving huge chunks of our children behind for no good reason other than, you know, we're just not teaching reading, and we're not teaching reading correctly. And if we never teach reading correctly, how are they supposed to ever be able to access the other subjects as well?
Yeah. You know, it's to me, you know, yes, it's Black, brown, Native American, but it's all God's children.
Exactly.
You know, you could be in the suburban school district, you could be in the rural school district, the urban school district, you could be in the on the reservation. Access is access unless your parents have capital. And if you don't have capital, you're left out knocking in saying, hey, how can I get a piece of this pie? Like, how can I get my child help? How can I, you know, get the search I need for my son or daughter? And so one of the things that Tony and I developed is, what's the name of the center again? We're developed the Learning
Differences Innovation Center.
So we're developing this center on campus to, again, provide this type of service to students, but in the long term, provide it for families of students enrolled. Like maybe they need some tutoring services, maybe they, you know, like we're trying to make it accessible and affordable for families. My current course right now for enrolled students, I think from Wisconsin, is free. Free.
That's perfect.
Don't cost nothing. Doesn't cost a penny. All you gotta do is show up and do the work. That's it. So, I mean, again, one of my things is I know how hard it was for my mother to find a program for me, and she had to pay, money for tutors, and it costs a lot of money, right? It's expensive. So that's why my course, I made it clear. I wanted it to be accessible for everybody who rolls into college has an opportunity. I don't care if they come from a wealthy family, they come from a family with no wealth. Like, no, every person starts at my class at the level, everything's leveled. It's equal, because I want them to have access to this language that's going to empower them, to give them hope, and to make them feel like they can compete in the labor market. They can have a voice at the table, And so even our pilot program we had last semester, it wasn't a lot of students, 5 students. We really try to, kick it off. But let me tell you, we did a pre and post test. We used the Sarah test from Dr. John Sabatini from University of Memphis, who's a renowned scholar in adult literacy. So we did this test, but some things really jumped out for us the most. One of it was that the data that we collected showed that we made modest gains, but we're moving in the right direction. People don't realize modest to these kids or these adults is significant. It's game changing. I'm not going against empirical research or quantitative research. I'm saying it's different when you're in the community college, because for these adult learners, it is significant that they make this type of gain in this short a period of time. Right? We had one student. She said for her, the greatest accomplishment that she had in this course was reading street signs. Some people might not say that's not significant, right? Research, to that student, it
That's
was
huge.
like, it's game changer, right?
Yeah.
It's so we out here just doing what we know works. And if people want to say that it's not appropriate practice or theory, like, hey, they can talk, but we'll let our work speak for themselves. We're gonna let our students' testimonies and scores speak for themselves. Like, we've already had 8 weeks so far. We're in the midpoint of the semester, and I was showing Tony and my dean some of the journal entries that students make. And my God, like the critical analysis that these students are writing, one would expect that from a PhD student or a teacher in a teacher training program. Like, they're just blowing my mind. Like, they have grown in 8 weeks. Like,
Right.
they have just kind of accelerated, and they're kind of just soaring and taking off. And it's not any magic. We're just giving them access. I'm gonna be quiet, Tony. I'm gonna take myself out, Coach. You're up.
Time for your nap.
Yeah.
What we were talking about, Shawn, is yes, yes, and yes. I mean, and just if you talk to Shawn's students about the course, it's the sense of understanding there are these set of rules, and I just didn't have access to those rules. I mean, I think that's the big thing for a lot of students. I was just talking to a friend who teaches at a small private school, teaches 6th grade, and she was telling me about a student who came to her who's really struggling with mathematics, and she knows a little bit about the work that we've done. And she said, do you have some places to point me to be more helpful to this student? But as they just saying the word, she said, talking to the parents about this could be dyscalculia. Sorry, I say it both ways because people say all kinds of
I say dyscalculia because I can barely say it
so I
the
jump
right
around.
way.
Depends on the day of the week what I say. But she said that, and she said, it's a private school. People have, good resources at this school. She said, but the relief that the mother felt to put a name on it, that this kid has struggled for years in private school. So there are so many layers of that.
Mhm.
What I think about in high school completion is when Shawn does his work and I do my work, and people develop a sense that somebody finally explained the rules to me, how to do these things, how to think about these things. There's that huge confidence boost, right? Like, I'm not stupid. Maybe I've been misunderstood all this time. I haven't been given the tools that I needed. But I always think about what that does, not only for the student, but the student's children and the student's grandchildren, because I think we have to think about it. It's not just about that student. Everybody's part of a family, part of a community. And when grandma starts talking about this at home and realizing that she has been short shrifted in her life from something that was not given to her, that makes a difference for future generations. And I think that's really important for Shawn, for me to keep in mind, is this is a multi-generational help. And of course, we know that dyslexia is often, there's patterns in families. So again, likely somebody's going to have a child or a grandchild who has dyslexia, if that person has dyslexia. So that's really important, to keep that longitudinal view in mind. The other thing that I like, Shawn was mentioning, and I think about something I heard a year or so ago, is that something we have to remember, especially those of us who were learned to read quickly or never struggled with mathematics, is that mathematics, words are technologies. In our modern age, we think about technologies as our devices that we carry around, but a technology is any tool that humans developed to accomplish a certain task. And mathematics is a tool that we use. Language, written language, is a tool. And of course, if you look around the world, we have lots of different ways that people have developed written language to accomplish these tasks. But sometimes we have this view that it's natural, right? Because there's some of us who, we even use that term, natural readers.
Yeah.
Like, I look at my own kids. I have 9 kids. I have some kids who, like a little bit of work, and by the time they were 9, they were reading, and I never talked to them about reading or spelling again, except for a quick conversation. And I have other kids who were in 8th grade before things really started to be able to come together. And that just makes me realize, people growing up in the same house, that some people the technology made sense. And think about every technology. People who can sit at a computer and figure out everything that's wrong with the computer in 5 minutes. It doesn't mean I can't do it, but I need to be trained how to diagnose a computer problem, right? But for some people, the logic makes sense. So
Right.
I always try to think about mathematics and the written word. Those are technologies. Some of us, that technology makes sense immediately. For some of us, that technology needs to be learned. And I think that's what we're doing, is having that view. It's it's not natural. Not everybody naturally learns language. Not everyone naturally learns numbers. But we can teach people how to use those technologies, just like we teach people how to use lots of technologies,
So I want to say 2 things. And the first is to you, Tony, that, learning to read was nothing for me. It was such a simple thing to do. But math never was. And I actually got kicked out of university for failing math twice. And I went to my local community college, and it was a teacher like you who unlocked all of math for me with a simple observation about how I learn math. He set me free. And I have an MBA because he set me free. What I do from a career perspective is deeply entrenched in math, because I can do any kind of math possible. I can't talk about it with you. I'm extremely visual when it comes to math. And yes, I know there's no such thing as a learning style, but if I can't see it, I can't do it. But that little kid who couldn't do math and struggled all the way through school with math, still will, I was getting ready to send an email a couple of days ago, and there was a very specific audience that the email was going to go to. And I went, I think my math is wrong. I can't send this email. If I send this email, I'm going to get in so much trouble. I had a whole bunch of people check my math before I sent the email, because I was so insecure about the email that I was going to send that had all these mathematical equations in them. And I'm like, I just, but it was a teacher like you who set me free. And the second thing is, Shawn, I'm going to throw some of your words back at you, because you said something to me a year ago that I found to be incredible. And this was just you and I talking. It wasn't over Dyslexia Coffee Talk. It was you and me. And you said something to me that was profound to me from an advocate perspective. And I want to say it back to you because it's what you're doing. You told me that my job was I couldn't just show people the door. I had to open the door and show them how to walk through the door to the other side. And that's what you're doing with the class. It doesn't matter. Anything else doesn't matter. It's not that, and you're just not showing people the door. You're opening the door and you're showing people how to walk through it. And that sets them free. And that's everything.
Yeah, we're trying to push them. We're pushing through the door. like Fresh Prince, you know, when his Jazzy Jeff got thrown out the front. Woo! Here's a door. No, we just, like you said,
You're showing all of our ages with that stuff.
hey, it's all right, you know.
No, I will tell the younger kids now they do know Fresh Prince because my kids talk about it, even though it's apparently come back. People are interested in it.
Good.
So
I mean,
some younger people would know.
You know, think what Tony's doing, what you're doing, you know, it's all about access. Excessive, that's all it is. It comes down to access. Who has it, who controls it, who gets it, right? That's all it is. And, you know, when Tony was talking about the technology piece, you know, how things like that, the cool thing about my course, it's all online live. So it's not face-to-face. So I have to be creative and think about ways to keep students engaged in an online platform for 16 weeks, right? For 4 days a week, for an hour a day. And, you know, I'm learning. Like, I'm not a king. I'm not God. I'm a human. I make mistakes, but I have to figure out how to keep them engaged in this way. We also realize that if we cut that online access for a lot of students, we will lose a good amount of adult learners who cannot get to campus, right? Yeah, we have technology issues. Okay, hey, big deal. I mean, it happens, you know. Students calling from the phone. I say, hey, look, you shouldn't be driving your phone right now. Call when you get home, or if you have to miss class, you can miss it. Like, I'm not, you know, gonna be upset with that. But the fact that it's online opens the door for a lot more students to have access to this knowledge when they wouldn't get it either in person or anywhere else. So again, we're just trying to change the game and narrative of how adult learners, particularly at Madison College or Wisconsin, are provided this, you know, information that, you know, should be taught to teachers. But now we got to flip the script and say, okay, what, you know, let's make it accessible for adults and adolescents too. Like, now we have high schools that want their students to take the course, and so and that's really about it. I don't know. That's all I have.
Yeah. I don't know if you caught Coffee Talk last weekend, but I was talking to an educator out of Georgia named Sherry Lucas Hall. And she was talking about creating basically literacy centers within the junior high school space to do exactly what it is that you're learning. Because, you know, the problem from our perspective as advocates is, you know, in the K through 12 system, the only period where you have to remediate a kid is in elementary school, because that's where you've got the most malleable time, if you will, to be able to manipulate a student schedule. And they've got a block where you can actually have even the possible chance of having enough time to do fidelity with whatever program it is that you're working with. But you get to junior high and high school and all of that is gone. You know, and if you try to do something like that, then you're taking away a student's elective. And the elective may be the only thing that's keeping the kid going through school, you know? So, I mean, she was really passionate about, and we had a good exchange about, you know, having these literacy centers within school districts for these particular students who are really struggling, because if they can't read, the rest of the curriculum doesn't matter. You know, you're still leaving the kid behind. You're just shoving them through the system. There's a profound difference. So, but I did want to ask, and I realize in asking the question that there's a good chance you don't know the answer to this, but are you aware of anybody else doing this in any other colleges across the country? Like what y'all are doing?
No, we've talked to some, I can't say 100%, but the conversations we've had with researchers that focus on adult literacy, particularly in this space, have written to us, and Tony can jump in too, is that we are currently the only two-year institution, or one of very, very, very few in the country doing this work. So we are trying to lead by example. Like, like I said, other institutions, not to take jabs at them, but they told me, Shawn, you don't know what you're talking about. Your ideas are not relevant, and so I was up against a different system, and so when Madison College gave an opportunity, I ran with it. I just took off and I ran, like Olympics. Just took it, baton, and ran. And I'm not looking back. And I'm not gonna allow anybody to stop the progress that we've been making. And we have support all the way from the top down, from the president, the provost, our dean, our chair. Like, everyone is behind this. Like, it's gonna move. It's moving. Our marketing department, they're doing another video for us, a marketing video, students' voices as a recruitment tool. Like, we're gonna change lives. And one day, yes, I will write about this stuff in a peer-reviewed journal. I will publish it, right? But right now, that's not my life right now. I just want to be able to help these young adults crack the code, give them access, get them through the door, continue collecting data, and one day I write about it. I don't know if it's going to be a book chapter, a peer review article. But right now, my main mission is just to give these students access. And really, one of the very few people outside of Madison College and this dyslexia space in Wisconsin is Katie from Dakota Dyslexia from Wisconsin, right? She's been phenomenal support, like one of the only ones in Wisconsin that supports this work. Like, she's a great ally, great advocate, great colleague, great friend. Like, so we have people that are a part of this movement, and we don't want people jumping in when we get to the promised land. Like, no. If you're not in it right now, then don't try to take credit. When we make progress and we get these things off the running, because, like I said, we have high schools interested, we have the prison system interested. We're going to make change. Before I die on this earth, before I leave, I'm going to make change, period. And I'm very blessed and honored to have Tony. Like I say, he's a brother from another mother, right? Like, he's been very patient, and his leadership skills too, being in the tech college and the space he's been in. He knows how to move around things and make things happen. And, even him being in high school completion opens the door for another population of students to be served, right? So a lot of the students who are in high school completion are getting funneled into this course too, because a lot of them have a learning disability, and a lot of them haven't had access to this type of instruction at an earlier age. So, that's it. Coach Cina, I'm done, man.
But you were talking about your friend with this, trying to find space in middle school for people, to have this access. And Shawn and I have the same issues at the technical college system, right? Because our systems are built without this in mind.
Right.
So that's been our struggle, is to find the right place for it to fit. Nobody disagrees that there's a need for it. Everybody knows there's a need, and it's a need most people didn't think about at our college before Shawn entered the conversation. And then we also said, wait a minute, if 1 out of 5 people have dyslexia, yet, and we know from a research standpoint and from sort of the historic history of it, is that the science of reading, explicit, systematic instruction works. That's what we know works. Yet, are we doing that? So at very minimum, we might look at our college students as 1 out of 5. When we look at high school completion, I would say it's probably 2 or 3 out of 5. So this coming spring, we're talking about doing some a broader testing with this SARA testing that Shawn uses, because we need to get a handle on how many people are we really talking about. Because we don't really, with adults and with middle schoolers, we don't talk about decoding and encoding, right? We talk about, can you read it or can you not read it? But, what we know, and this is all from Shawn, is we know more about it than can you read or not, right? And then we look at the 5 components of reading that Shawn talks about with the SARA testing. So it really has changed the conversation. You know, I've been teaching the technical college system for a long time. Been teaching and just came out of the K-12 system. We just don't talk about it at the middle, high school, and community college or university level. It's a non-conversation. And when you think, you know, I was at a webinar the other day listening in, and Shawn was the speaker there, and there was another panelist who said, is this just an American thing? Like we think 70% is good enough? You know what I mean? Like 70% of the, you know, I mean, really, like when you think about that, just like, you know, you're from business perspective as an MBA. If you think like only 70% of my customers are satisfied, like we should be thinking about, well, what about the other 30%? Why aren't they satisfied? What's it, you know, so it really is like a crazy system that we've built that it's like we have accepted a certain amount of failure in the system. It's just sort of normal. Yet those people's lives become sort of collateral damage because we don't really address their needs. And I think that's
and not only is it normal, it's their fault.
Right. It's, you know, right. It's some, you know, I mean, I don't know, I've been doing some reading, just looking at like, you know, and I think Shawn maybe brought it to my attention is like when we say things like, well, you know, students don't read, their parents don't read at home. There's not enough written material at home. That's why students, so then it becomes a way to dismiss. And then I think about the house I grew up in. My dad read the newspaper every day, but we had one book. We had the Fables, the Mother Goose book. It was, we didn't own any books in our house, you know, yet we all became readers and went to college. So I was like, well, that isn't really the reason. It doesn't have to be the reason people can't read is because there aren't books in their homes. Because I didn't, you know, we had the Bible, we had Mother Goose book and the newspaper. Those are the books we had in our house. Right. So, but I think that's what I appreciate about what Shawn has brought to the conversation. You might notice I keep writing things down because every time I talk to Shawn, I'm jotting my notes to myself, a to-do list, because as I work, so my work in addition to teaching mathematics is kind of navigating our system at our college. And connecting Shawn with the right people. Keep talking to people about what this looks like, because I think for most people, it's not even part of what people think about. Even really dedicated educators at the post-secondary level, they're not thinking about these issues. And Shawn keeps ringing that bell so that we have to keep thinking about it.
Yeah, and I want to challenge the 70% statistic too, because it's, you know, what we know from the NAEP scores is it's more like only really 30% of kids are getting through school knowing what K through 12, knowing allegedly what they need to know. We don't know that for sure, but we know that, you know, the rest of them though, if they get a diploma, they were more than likely they were just handed a diploma in order to move them out of the system, and no real value within their education was there. But Shawn, I interrupted you.
Oh, you're good. You're good. You're good. It's your show. I'm just on your show, Coach. Just you.
But I want to hear what you were going to say.
I forgot now.
Yeah. So I do have a question for you though. So, Shawn, I know you really know a ton about the science of reading and math, and Tony, you're talking about the math portion. And Shawn, I know that I'm becoming hyper vigilant about the dysgraphia space, and writing is not the same thing as reading. They both have to be explicitly taught systematically as well. Are you offering writing? Are you developing a course for writing? Are you looking for somebody to create that like third complement to go with what seems to be a pretty dynamic duo between the two of you?
Two things. Let me so with these classes here, you know, word analysis and math, let me slow myself down here. I can write, but I don't know how to teach writing. That makes sense?
Yes. Yes.
And so I don't ever want to come off to say I'm an expert in writing when I don't know how to teach writing. So I want to make that, I don't care if it's recorded or not. Like I'm very humble. Like I know my limitations. I'm okay with that. Tony and I had this conversation before, is that how can we connect all these components together to help the students? Like how can they take this word analysis course with the math course with a solid writing course that gives them the skills to become a better writer, right? And so I don't know if I can answer that question for you. We're always thinking about things, like thinking about how to make change. And one of the big things in the word analysis course is that we focus heavily on spelling right now. Like
that's huge.
It's spelling. Well, Tony could tell you, like the first 10 weeks, we focus just on spelling. Because if you can spell it, you can do what?
You can read it.
You can write it and read it, right?
Yeah.
But reading it doesn't guarantee you can do what? Spell it, or maybe even write it. So we just focus on spelling the way Dr. Nash taught me, which helped me become a better writer. But again, I'm not an expert in writing. And I don't want to come off pretending I am, either on social media or interview or anywhere, because that's not my expertise. Right. So we're trying to pull in any person from English that can department, literature that could really help with that writing. Tony, would that be fair or?
Just what I would have said, Shawn. Yeah, that yes, we are interested in it. It's not something we've explored. It's something we've talked about, because right now we're really deep into finding our place, which is not, even when people acknowledge, yes, what you do is important, but finding a place, and it's often the structure, that's the thing at any institution, it's often the structure that limits what you can do. And so that's a big piece of my role with the Learning Differences Innovation Center, is looking at the structure, poking at the structure and the people in the structure to find out where we fit. Because I'm 100% convinced that what we do is important. But just my experience in mathematics, right? It's like a lot of what we do in mathematics and remedial developmental mathematics is we repeat what somebody should have learned in 6th grade. And we often just use the same methods people would have learned in 6th grade. So we shouldn't be surprised that we get the same results when we just teach it the same way. So something that I found really useful, and I think that it fits in this conversation, again, I'm quoting Dr. Sharma because he's really influenced me in the last few months. And in mathematics, he talks about these sort of the 3 pieces of becoming mathematically literate, is that there's the language, right? Like that language creates the schema for us to be able to think. So the linguistics are very important. Then there are the concepts, there are the procedures. So those 3 things together, when they're integrated, and these are his words, when they're integrated, they become a skill. So we often teach those disconnected from each other, or we focus a lot on procedural knowledge in mathematics and a little bit on concept. Like, here's a 5-minute concept. Now we're going to jump to procedure, and we're just going to practice procedure. But without all 3 pieces of that stool, that doesn't sit right. So I think that's what we keep working with at this point, is like, where do we fit? And Shawn has done a great job of connecting us with Dr. John Sabatini, because it's about, first of all, finding good assessments, the tools we use at post-secondary to place people. I'm not going to name them because I don't want somebody from that company to come back and give me a hard time. But, generally those placement tools, and there are a number of placement tools, are not great at giving us very specific information, especially for people who are at the lower end. And so what we're doing right now is talking about using the SARA test more, because people who have low reading scores can have a number of different issues. Dyslexia is only one of them. And so we have to know more. We can't just automatically lump anybody who's a low reader or somebody who's struggling with mathematics in the same group, and that better assessments help us. Last week, through Shawn's work, I was connected with a researcher in Finland who has developed a dyscalculia screener. And they have an English version already. And so Dr. Sabatini and I are going to, both in January, we're going to pilot using this dyslexia screener in our courses. And so it's the first time we used in the US. But what was really interesting when I was talking to this Finnish researcher is that, so in Finland, they developed this assessment. They also developed this assessment and connected to the curricular materials, so that Finnish teachers have availed, like, to teach this concept that's tested on this battery of tests, use these curriculum materials. right now, you know, a lot of what happens in the United States, we get these tests, we get numbers and results, but it's not connected to what do we do next? Like, how do we fix that? How do we specifically fix that student's deficiencies? And I think that's part of what Shawn has done well, you know, and really trying to link the SARA test with the kinds of instruction he gives. So I think there's a lot of exciting work. And I think part of it will be for dysgraphia is good assessment. So we know, is it just a lack of experience? This is why this person is struggling with writing, or is it dysgraphia, or is it both? So
Right.
good assessments that are connected to instruction are very important.
Right.
Yeah,
You know, and of course, as William Van Cleve said, you know, sometimes they're diagnosed with dysgraphia when they just haven't been taught. But Shawn, please.
yeah. No, I was saying with the SARA test, like, so the students take it, you know, pre-test, they take the post the end of the semester. I have access to the students' like scores, but I haven't looked at any of their scores at all. Nothing. I don't look at them because for me, I want to be able to teach what I know. I don't want to teach to what they show me on the test. And so I'm curious of how they develop over the course of 16 weeks. If some don't make any progress, then I have to look in the mirror and say, what am I doing wrong? And how do I change myself to deliver information to the student that can retain it? So for me, I love the SARA test because it gives us accurate information right then, like when they finish, like automatically, it gives us everything about the student's profile. And so it's just really, really helpful to have, as Tony alluded to, you too, is having that assessment to help us collect data to really just justify what we're doing is key. And John was a gift from heaven because it's helping us change the narrative and be at the forefront of dyslexia, reading instruction, science of reading, however you want to frame it, for adult learners at a 2-year institution. We're going to make change. I mean, we're making change. It's just, you know, we're going to keep, you know, like a little train, choo, 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 choo.
So I have to ask the question because through the Dyslexia Initiative, we are frequently asked what is available for adult learners. Do they have to live in Wisconsin to take your course? Shawn, you said yours was over Zoom. Tony, I'm assuming yours is not, or yours is over Zoom as well. I'm not sure. Yes, good. But do they have to live in Wisconsin?
No, I think they have to be enrolled in the institution. Is that right, Tony?
Mm-hmm.
So as long as they're enrolled in the institution, my class is free to them. Free. But I'm actually going to take that back. I'm not sure if it's free if they're not from the state of Wisconsin. Is that right, Tony?
You know, that's a question that we have to ask enrollment. See,
Yeah, I don't know that
always
question.
with the list every time.
Yes.
Shawn.
I want to take that. Yes,
Yeah.
if they're enrolled, they have access to the course. However, if they're not live in the state of Wisconsin, I'm not sure what the price difference is. You know, because sometimes it's different
Right.
from state to state. So, but yes, they're enrolled, they can take it. So, like, I don't care if you're from Nebraska, Texas, California. If you want to enroll in Madison College, take the course, you're free to come take it. So,
And Dr. Robinson said that from the proceeds of his book, he will pay for any enrollment costs for any from outside of Wisconsin. So it's still free. Yeah, I will actually, and Ashley, I can actually get back to you with that. I'll do some work and find that out because that's a good question, especially because it's not a credit course. It's right now offered as a free developmental course. And you know, credit course you're paying for, so that's a little bit different. So I'll do a little work on that because it's a good question.
and we're also
No, I was just going to say that would be great because then I could list that as a resource on our website, but I could, as we get the question, I could also direct people to your course.
Right.
yeah, one of the things too that we're working on, and it might take some time. Nothing happens overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day, right? Is how I'm always pushing for this. Like I'm always pushing for it. I'm pushing till a day I die if it's not pushed. Is how can we make this course of credit for students? Because credit changes the game completely for students, right?
Right.
Completely. They invest in their education, but also they get return of a credit versus not having a credit like, why am I investing in this course? I'm not getting the credit. Like, why do I need to invest in it if it's free? So, again, if we get this become a credit course, 16-week, 64-hour course, it's going to change the game completely at a two-year institution. It's going to change how, you know, remedial education is framed, right? From the deficit to acceleration, and just change how, again, all the way back to access.
Yeah, and access, showing them through the door is empowerment.
Like the Fresh Prince. Right?
So before we wrap up, Shawn, book number 3.
Oh, what about it?
Tell us about it. Is it out? Is it coming out? Is it? I know that this is your big month.
Yeah, it's out, but it's not available for print yet. We've had some delay with the printing company, but hopefully this week it'll be available. We've added 3 new characters. You know what? I'm gonna do this. I usually don't do this, but since you asked me, I'm gonna do this just for you.
Thank you.
Give me a second.
And I heard that he's working on book 4, which is Dr. Dyslexia. And
I was about to ask Tony, are you going to make an appearance in Dr. Dyslexia Dude?
So Shawn's going to put the cool in Dyscalculia with the 4th book.
All right. Let me you all keep talking. Let me just no, I got to get to my email real quick and pull it up.
I wanted to, so Ashley, I did put in the chat, and I don't know if you shared that with people, but Mathematics for All is a really good website that I would encourage people to check out. I'd also encourage people to check out dyscalculia.org. Renee Newman runs that. She has dyscalculia. She went through college. Didn't really identify until she was in college why she was struggling with mathematics. So she is a dyscalculia tutor out of Michigan, but she has a fantastic website. The only problem with the website, and Renee, if you're listening to me, it's a good problem, is there's so much information. Like she is just an incredible resource gatherer and has just so many. In fact, I mean, including, you know, people who are going to college and looking at what are options if I have dyscalculia, options for waiving, options for courses, ways to get around courses that may really be something that a person really struggles with. So just, you know, K through graduate school kind of information there. So she's really good, a great resource. I really recommend people look at that. And I've spent a lot of time on that website and learned a lot from that.
You know, Renee?
I do. We chat once in a while on the phone, and she has worked on a little consulting work as I was getting into this work, and she helped me out. So
hook me up and I'll ask her to come on.
Oh, okay. I will. Yes, she would be wonderful. I will send, adding it to my list. I will contact Renee, and you will enjoy her very much. She's very, very knowledgeable.
Nice. I'm booking the spring now, so.
Okay, good. I'll send her a text and get her connected.
Perfect. Yay me. And somebody did say, yes, please put the cool in dyscalculia.
Shawn will have to do that.
We just need to put the cool back in math.
Yes. Well, there we go.
Ooh.
All right, I'm gonna give you a sneak peek. That's it. I can't say too much, but we've added 3 new characters. As you can see, they have unique names, right? And their names speak to their powers.
Yeah.
Speak to what they teach. So you can see the names here. But I'm only gonna give you a little bit. Should be out, and this book is more for probably elementary school kids, middle school. It's a decodable text where they're gonna be learning about word families, but it's all through a culturally responsive lens, where a lot of the content is rhyming, rapping, onset, but we made it where it's like a rap battle, right? They're actually having a battle using words. So it should be available this week. This one, is $9.95. And then also too, we have a 88-page coloring book coming out next week too.
Nice.
So it's a Dr. Dyslexia Dude, volumes 1, 2, and 3 all together in one, with all the content taken out, where students can write their own stories, their own storyboards using the artwork from all 3 graphic novels. And so it's a coloring book / also, storyboard where students can write their own story, their own narrative. Yeah.
That's amazing. So amazing.
Only for you, Ashley, I'll show you.
Well, thank you.
Well,
But I'm also not surprised it's amazing. I just, I'm going to say that too.
okay.
Glad that you somehow were able to use the name Orville, just don't see a lot of Orvilles around anymore. So bringing it back.
That's the thing about my wife and I will want to do. I know we're not talking about adults now, but just talking about students in general, particularly in special education, who have dyslexia, who don't have dyslexia. We want to let them know that they can be creative. Like, the mind is a very powerful tool. And once they know how to use it to their advantage, they can do anything they want to do. It just takes the opportunity. And so my wife and I, in this book, she really took a lot of time to think. Like, my wife, I give her all the credit for this book. Like, she spent a lot of time thinking about how to make it really relatable for young students, right? And then we talked about how we can put the science of reading a little bit, word families in there to tie it in together. Look, this book is not a tool to be used to teach the science of reading, right? This book is a tool to help students get engaged with reading, right? To open their minds to imagination to read, understand the possibilities of what they can accomplish by learning to read, or developing word families and having conversations about words, and just the imagination from, having no engagement to being self-empowered through literature. And so that's all we try to do, is just really find a way to empower students through literature, particularly, all kids, right? But then kids with dyslexia, but then kids who look like me. Like, I'm gonna say it, like, I don't even care. Like, we want to make sure that kids with dyslexia saw themselves as being successful and had hope. Then we want to make sure that kids who look like me knew there was a way out, that special education is not the end all. Like, with the right support services, the right instruction, the right identification, you are capable of doing anything you want to do, put your mind to it. Like, you just got to stay focused, and you just got to keep moving. Like a little train, choo, 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 choo. That's twice this. You just got to keep moving. And that's why my wife wrote these books, is that we just wanted to allow kids to see themselves in a different perspective, not a deficit, not, a narrative that's always talked about, particularly for Black and Brown students, what they can't do and why they're not in culture responsive text. My wife's like, you know what, we're gonna flip the script. So that's why we wrote this book. We hope it touches people. We're just trying to do good on this earth before we die. I mean, that's it. At the end of the day, we're all gonna die. I'm gonna die. Don't know when, don't know how, but I'm gonna
Hopefully a long
earth.
time from now.
So
Peacefully.
So
Shawn, I thought that was one of the rules of interviews. You weren't supposed to talk about death at the end of an interview.
I'm just saying, man. I'm just trying to say it. I don't know when my time is going to be up. And for me, I want to be of service. I want to be of service to humanity. I want to make sure what Tony and I are doing changes the trajectory of not just higher education, but to institutions for students. We've also talked about how we can train teachers at the tech college, right? Community college, to get them into the job market faster, right? Than a four-year institution, give them the skills, the trade to get out and be marketable. I mean, and then with the kids book. So I'm just trying to do change. I'm around good people, got good spirits. That's why I told you before, earlier in the interview, it's hard for me to talk about dyslexia or talk about the science of reading publicly, because a lot of times I just get pushback. And I'm not here to debate or justify myself or look for, the approval of the gatekeeper. So I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing because it works. It's not man-made. I just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm gonna develop this program. No, it's been here longer than I've been alive. Like Dr. Nash started this in 1979. The man studied 30 years of his life in dictionary. He was going to Orton Society meetings and giving presentations. They were telling him that he was ahead of his time in his methodology and his instructional approaches. So I'm just taking the work that he taught me. He trained me on when I was 18, trained me on when I was an undergrad, a master's, and PhD student. He trained me for all those years when I was in school, 18 plus years. I studied under him. I learned under him. I have books that he has from the 70s, 80s that Dr. Moltz references in her book, Speaks to Print. So I'm just doing what I know, and I don't need no justification. I'm gonna do it, and I love what I do. And Coach Cina, I'm out, man.
It's nap time.
No more choo-choo, choo-choo.
3 times. That's an all-time record, I think, for a presentation now.
No. Hey, life,
You did it in a TED Talk. Did you see in the TED Talk? You got a choo-choo in there.
So I watched the TED Talk. I don't remember the choo-choo. Now I'm gonna have to go back and watch it.
It made it almost all the way through, like about 10 minutes, because that's what whenever I listen to Shawn pre-recorded, I'm always waiting to hear, is a choo-choo going to come up? And it was about 10 minutes in, if I remember correctly. And I was like, I knew he was going to do it. So,
hey, you know what? Life is too short. We don't know when our time's going to come. So, for me, I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm going to live my best life.
Amen.
And I'm going to give the knowledge that I've learned throughout my navigating this space that's not designed for students with dyslexia. It'd be selfish of me to keep this knowledge to myself and say, nah, boo-boo, it's all mine, you can't have any. But for me, I'm rich. Maybe not financially, but I'm rich spiritually because I get to change lives every day. I wake up and teach adults how to read and how to crack the code. So I'm rich. I'm blessed, man. I'm happy, man. I'm good. I'm in the Bahamas right now. I was in space, but
you came down.
Yeah. My ego was too big. I had to come down, a little bit. Woo.
By the way, I added your TED Talk to our website and on our list of our favorite videos and recordings.
All right. I'll pay you later for that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think she's going to ask for a free book, Shawn.
I'll give her a free book, man. I don't mind getting asked a free book, man. That's cool. I don't mind.
Well, you gave me book 1 and 2, so now I just need 3 and the coloring book. So I can hold them up and show people. But I'm kind of kicking myself because I feel like we should have taken a bet before we went live about how long we were going to go. Because I think, Shawn, you said maybe an hour, more like 45 minutes.
I'll talk.
And I knew in my heart. I knew it, and I'm glad. It's perfect. It's beautiful. But I'm going to let Shawn lay on that beach with his family and take a nap and, play football. And Tony, I'm going to let you go play with your kids. And I'm going to go keep studying dyscalculia because that's what dysgraphia, because that's what I need to be doing. So.
Hey, before we leave, Can you two repeat after me, please?
Mm-hmm.
Tony, you got to repeat after me, man.
Choo-choo.
No choo-choos, man. I'm done with choo-choos. I'm done. So the work that we're all doing, Ashley and Tony, I want you to say the first word, help.
Help.
We're helping people. We're giving them, and they're helping us too. It's reciprocal, right?
Mm-hmm.
By helping them, we're giving them opportunity. So say opportunity with passion.
Opportunity.
Tony, that was weak, man. You failed that one. Now, after that, I want you to say progress. And empowerment. And what's that spell? Everything. What's the acronym for that?
Hope.
There we go. Hope. You gotta have hope. You gotta keep hope. If you don't have hope, what you living for? You gotta have hope.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, we're going to end on that beautiful note. Thank you both so much. This is awesome. Tony, you've got a to-do list you got to go do. So.
And I'll get back to you about those things that I said I promised to send
Awesome.
along.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, I did listen to another of your podcasts before, and I will follow up. I'd like to know more about your dysgraphia research, and maybe you could point me in the direction of some good places to do some learning, because I'm not an expert at all, but I'm interested in just starting to hear more about what that might look like.
That's the world that I'm embroiled in, because my son, his comprehension, he's in 7th grade, his comprehension's at a 9th grade level, but his written expression is at a 1st grade level.
Mhm.
So, that's a challenge now because he's in junior
high. We could
high.
probably compare notes, because I have a 14-year-old freshman who's probably right there, and dysgraphia has not been officially diagnosed, but the pun intended writings on the wall, what's really going on there. So I would like to hear more and know more.
Definitely. Well, we've got each other's emails. And we've got
Great.
Shawn, who can always.
I'm out. I'm done. I'm out. I'm done.
All right.
No, I'm
Well,
joking.
with there, I'm going to end our live stream. So thank you both so much. This has been amazing.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Ashley.
you. Have a good day.
Have an awesome day.